Dr. Jazz.
Cool, man. Thanks for finding the time.
Dr.
Really happy.
Jazz.
Of course, it's my pleasure and honor. Thank you.
I know you're busy and you were in the East, right? You said, I think.
I was just in Puerto Rico
Well, oh,
and
okay, there. Okay.
and then I was in Seoul, Korea.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Wow,
So I've been
amazing.
gone for like a month. Yeah, it was great.
Okay. Uh, but I wanted to start this talk. I have your early records, Sweet Transients and Playful Intentions, the Fresh Sound stuff, and I used to buy everything on Fresh Sound since I was on the same label, so I was really interested, and that was really an amazing period for that label, I think. But the last one I heard by you was Regeneration, right? Which was kind of I didn't expect that from you this side. So like, what's the story of Regeneration? How come you decided to that one? And have you been preparing also something new as a band leader? I mean, lately.
So that one came out of the pandemic period where we were
Okay.
all isolated and just kind of, trying to keep myself occupied. And I have an old friend that we go back to like maybe seventh grade, like around 12 or 13 years old, that an old musical friend, and he lives in Israel. And so he just started sending me these tracks for fun and just kind of just recording them. And so yeah, I totally am with you that it's very much a departure, nothing like I'd ever done
Yeah.
before. So it was, it was what it was, and it was kind of fun to do. And I had somebody finance it, so they put it out on vinyl, which was kind of a vanity project ultimately. I have a million vinyls here sitting at my house.
Yeah, I know, man. That's
You know that story. But as far as new stuff, I'm just it's just in the thinking process of doing something next. I've been kind of working, doing some duos with different people, and I'm kind of
beautiful.
floating the idea of doing a duo record, maybe with a few different pianists or maybe even a guitar as well.
Wow, beautiful. Yeah. What about band stuff? Have you been writing something for like quartets or quintets, like that early stuff? Or
Not so much lately.
oh, really interesting.
The people that I play with are such prolific composers that I haven't been writing lately, though I know I should. And summertime, when I have a little more time on my hands, I should sit down and really get to that, because I
Yeah,
know that's an important process. And
yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I love your early stuff, that ellipsis and what is that unanswered question and all those tunes. I remember I listened to it today and I was like, man, that's beautiful music. It's like we need more.
well, thank you very much. It feels like a long time ago, and it
Oh,
is.
it
It's
is.
a
Yeah.
couple decades ago, but
Yeah.
they,
Yeah.
they still they I hope they hold up okay.
Oh man, beautiful stuff. Yeah. I mean, the bands are killing and the music, the play and everything. So yeah.
Thank you
But
so much.
uh,
Appreciate that.
but I listened today also on YouTube with some recordings you did with Jerry Bergonzi, like live gigs. And you and Jerry seem to have like a really strong connection. And I listened to Extra Extra also, which you did with Jerry. I think it was last year. Like, how did your story with Jerry begin, and what does that mean for you? He's like the legend of the saxophone world. So
He is. I feel very blessed to be around him as often as I am. Probably first met him, started recording with him, or actually as a sideman, and probably about 20 years ago, a little more than 20 years ago now. And so it kind of grew from there. And I probably done maybe seven or eight
mm,
of his records, I'd say about now. And we've had a steady gig here in Boston for the last, I think it's now about 13 or 14 years every Monday night, which is pretty
man,
incredible. So I feel blessed for that, obviously. And we play we play from 8:30 to 10, and then the Fringe, the legendary band The Fringe, with George Garzone and John Lockwood, and now with Francisco Mella. And so they follow us 10:30 to midnight. So it's quite an event here. It's the closest thing we get to New York, I would say,
yeah,
here. So yeah, and Jerry, like I say, is a prolific composer,
Yeah, yeah.
and he's just a obviously he's a legendary sax player and educator, but he's also as people that know him, he's a fantastic, inspiring person to be around and very hardworking, and he plays piano, he plays
Yeah.
drums, he plays bass. And we've also been doing, so you mentioned the recordings. We have two different things. So we record often at the Lily Pad, which is a live gig. And then we've also been doing this live stream that we started during the pandemic. So we've been doing that for about 3 years. And that's been a very positive, turning something somewhat negative into a positive. And so consequently, we kind of stopped recording his compositions, but we did about 320 of his compositions that we now
Are you
have recorded.
serious? Oh man,
So I don't know who can say they've done that,
that's
but
scary.
so it's been a very educational learning thing for me just to be in the studio every week. And it's been fantastic. And
Wow.
so consequently, our relationship has continued to grow. And I appreciate that you can hear that because
Yeah, it's amazing, man. It's like the interplay between you guys. It's like really
I get a lot of joy
beautiful.
just from blending with him, just playing a melody, sometimes is
Yeah,
beautiful feeling. So
yeah,
thank you.
amazing, fantastic. Phil, since I have you here, I wanted to ask you, like, how did you start? I know you're from the West Coast, and obviously your brother is like a monster bass player. And how did you guys, when you were growing up, how did you encounter jazz, especially, and how did this work in relation to your brother? I mean, did you guys play together, or like, what's the story there?
Yes. So we grew up in San Francisco, California. We were born in San Francisco, and our father, we're three brothers, me and
Oh,
two
okay.
other brothers, right? And so my father loved jazz. He played trumpet, and he was kind of his peak period was during World War II in the Army band, and he truly instilled the love of music in us, and kind of his passion was the big band era.
Hmm.
So he came out of that, and people like Harry James and Benny Goodman and things like that. So that's some of my earliest memories is him playing music, and you could just feel the passion, the way he beat his foot to it. It was really beautiful. And so he started, Larry, my brother, and my brother Steve. We're all approximately a year apart. I'm the oldest. Larry's the youngest. And my brother Steve became a guitar player.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Fantastic guitar player at the time. And we all started out playing trumpet. All three of us played trumpet.
Wow. Okay.
And my two brothers came to their senses and moved on to bass and guitar. So we kind of had a family band a little bit. We grew up playing together in school, combos, and we all, you see the records behind me. We all started buying records at that age, at quite a young age. And I learned so much from them, and hopefully they feel the same way. So we would just share the music together. They would kind of tell me what I was doing was corny or things like that, too trumpetistic, and so we had all that going on. And yeah, my family, my mom and dad were super uh, supportive, and they got us lessons with fantastic teachers in San Francisco. All of us studied, and yeah, we played a lot together through high school. And my brother Steve doesn't play. I hope he's still playing, but the last he hasn't been playing. He teaches like business finance at Stanford University in
Oh,
Palo
well,
Alto.
okay.
So he's doing okay. I don't worry about him too
Oh,
much.
sure.
But and Larry and I, we played together. Obviously we've done some recordings together. I guess it's been a year or two since we played together. We'll do some gigs in New York together. So we
Oh,
played the
beautiful.
Jazz Gallery together, and where else? A kind of a bygone club, the Jazz at Catano. I recently I had my own gig at Smalls, and he was
Hmm.
going to do it, but consequently he got busy, so he couldn't do it. But I obviously, whenever I get to play with him, it's a sublime experience.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah, yeah, amazing. I've read that when you were 16, you basically play with everyone. How did that story happen? I mean, like I saw on your biography, it's like who's who of the soul, funk, whatever world. Like, how did you encounter? How did that step begin for you, like into that world? I mean,
Right. It's another blessing where I always had great trumpet teachers, and my first trumpet teacher, Larry Blake, was incredible and got me going technically. And then when I was 16 years old, I started studying with a trumpet teacher in San Francisco named John Coppola. And he was kind of a legendary guy in San Francisco, and again was kind of a big band era
mm,
trumpeter where he worked with Woody Herman and Stan Kenton in the early 50s. And he had, he was super inspiring and really kind of told me, he just got me in line with being a professional. And he had his own band. And so he started hiring me for his big band. And you know how it goes.
mm,
You do one gig, you meet two other people, and you get more work. At that time, San Francisco was very happening. Um, Lots and lots of work. And
yeah.
so uh, it just grew from there. And so, yeah, I got to play with a lot of amazing people. I guess I ended up at the Venetian Room, which was kind of a supper club in the Fairmont Hotel. And so I kind of padded my resume there, doing, working with Ella Fitzgerald and Mel Torme and George Shearing,
Man,
and did some rock
crazy.
gigs. I guess it sounds good on paper. It was, but like playing with Santana and people in Journey. I worked quite a bit with Steve Smith, the drummer.
Wow.
So Larry and I would do gigs with him. We went to Las Vegas. Some just good memories. So I got a lot of seasoning at that point in time as a young person.
Mm.
There was just one band after another coming through the Venetian Room. So it's good experience. I learned how to read very well. I was a pretty good reader, and I kind of always wanted to be a studio musician, but that kind of dried up by the time I became of age. Um, but my goal was to move to New York, and so I moved to New York in 1988, and
Already? Wow. Okay.
consequently,
Wow.
doing all those gigs, I was able to save up a good amount of money to buy myself some time when I left San Francisco. But when I left San Francisco, I was doing literally 30 gigs a month. It was crazy, right? So,
Man. Okay. Jesus. That's amazing, man.
and then moving to New York was kind of a dream come true. I always had wanted to do that. I had visited a few times as a younger person, but basically I was 24 years old when I moved to New York,
Mm.
and that was kind of just a pure learning experience. And all the amazing musicians I encountered at that time left a lasting impact and still inspires me today. And I feel like, being in New York made me a better musician, a better person. It brought some things that I feel like that you can't really learn anywhere else. I could be wrong about that, but people going to music school, that was my music school ultimately.
Who were the first people you hook up with in New York? I mean, how was that like the first weeks? I mean, usually I always like this question because it's always like scary in a way, but also exciting, I think.
Yeah, New York in 1988 was a different New York. It was I mean it's always it was pretty rough then, and it was a little dangerous. I lived kind of in a neighborhood where you could buy crack cocaine 24/7, and so that was a little daunting. Being a trumpeter, yeah, it was difficult for me. I certainly just the way I would meet, I didn't know that many people, hardly any at all ultimately. So I would just go to the jam sessions,
Mm,
and I remember going to the Blue Note, the late night jam sessions there, which was hosted by Justin Robinson,
mm.
and definitely met some great people there. I've, memories of playing with people, and also the Village Gate, where I met a lot of people, Jesse Davis and Spike Wilner,
Mhm.
the Smalls crew, and
Yeah.
Peter Bernstein, and those guys I would meet there. I met a drummer friend who's still a great friend named Owen Howard.
Mhm. Yeah.
I've done some records with him over the years. Tons of people, and then just meeting trumpet players and getting the scene. But honestly, the work was not flowing right away for me. It took me time, and like I contrast that with my brother Larry. He moved to New York in 1991, and so I was there for 3 years. The first week he played Sweet Basil with Don Grolnick,
Oh man, okay.
Stewart, so that's it. We have
Yeah,
a different history story there.
interesting. Yeah. How important was Bob Belden for you? I mean, because I checked my records. I have you on two Bob Belden records actually. I think it was
That's
Blue
right.
Note. And how did you hook up with him? I mean, he's like one of those quite underrated players and composers, I think, in the wider jazz sense. I'll put it like that.
I agree. He was a beautiful person, and this is kind of an inspiring story that I'll tell my students. Um, I met him. I wasn't a student, but somebody asked me to do their recital at the new school. And so, I don't know how I felt about it at the time, but I said, okay, I'll do it. And so I did this gig at the new school, and I got done with it. And in the audience was Bob Belden. I had no idea.
Okay.
And
Wow.
he came up to me and said he enjoyed my playing and took my number. And literally, it felt like the next day he called me to do this record for Blue Note, which was the Puccini's Turandot, or however you pronounce it,
Yeah.
Turandot. And it was this massive project, with the kind of a who's who,
Exactly.
of New York musicians. And so I found myself from, ultimately doing something, just a throwaway, nothing gig, to being at it was Avatar Studio, which was, one of the top,
Yeah.
if not the top studio in New York, with Bob Belden. And so, consequently after that, he became quite a mentor to me, and I would go into his house.
Hmm.
I was teaching at the Mannes College of Music, which was on West 85th Street in Manhattan, and he was at West 87th. So I'd go to his house all the time, and he had, you think this record collection was big. He didn't have it all there. He had it like in a warehouse or
Oh
something.
shit, man.
He
Wow.
was he was truly an encyclopedia of knowledge, especially and so I was teaching a course on Miles Davis, and he was helping me with that. And this is way before YouTube, and so he had all these videos of Miles way before anybody had them, all kinds of bootlegs. Just an inspiring guy to go hang out, but very down to earth at the
Hmm.
same time, you know.
Yeah.
And so he got me on some good gigs. I would play with his band, the Visionis. One dream gig I did with him was I played with one of my idols, Teramasa Hino, the
Really? Oh wow, beautiful.
Japanese trumpeter.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so that was a highlight gig. And I also met another one of my idols, Tim Hagen's fantastic trumpeter. And so I remember on that gig, actually, it was just the rehearsal. We didn't do it on the gig. Playing solos. I forget what tune it was with Hino and Hagen's. And so that to me is like one of the dreams of mine, come
Sure.
true. So Belden was definitely a huge influence on me. And
Hmm.
his band leading was truly incredible too, where unlike most people, they want to rehearse things so much. He was kind of a spontaneous person, and he would make his records that way.
Yeah.
Kind of, using the role model of Miles Davis, I think, where Miles would, maybe rehearse the melodies, but once the solos hit, that was kind of went on the record, and Bob kind of styled himself on that. So
Hmm.
that was kind of inspiring and also scary, but those records, I did that one, and I did another one, as you mentioned, it was kind
Beautiful
of like
stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
the Prince record. It was kind of Prince jazz or something like that. And same deal. Again, fantastic musicians.
Yeah. He
And
had amazing bands always. Yeah. That's amazing.
yeah, and then unfortunately he passed. I want to say maybe it's been 10 years. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if it's been quite that long, but what a loss.
Yeah.
But I loved him. I was supremely thankful to him.
Hmm. Yeah. You mentioned band leading. Like, when did you start leading bands? I mean, after you've been in New York, when did that start?
Yeah, in New York, I led very few bands. I've always been kind of a sideman. I guess in New York, I remember a rare gig. I just play here and there. I remember playing one gig at this bygone club called at First on First, which was First Avenue and First Street in the Lower East Side, and that was my early start. That was with Rich Perry on tenor,
Hmm. Beautiful.
who I love.
Yeah.
And then over the years, I would just, I would teach at Stanford Jazz Workshop every summer in Palo Alto. And I got to lead some gigs there and play with some, just kind of throw together bands. I remember playing with Jim McNeely
Mm.
and the great drummer Eddie Moore, and my brother would be playing. But overall, and I lead gigs here in Boston, but it's nothing really presenting myself. Like I said, in New
Yeah.
York, I played Smalls. I did a Friday and Saturday under my name and a few other clubs. But I need to do more of that, and I know it's good for me, and it would probably be good for my just standing in career standing or things like that. But
Yeah.
they're few and far between.
I mean, is it heavy for you? Like, do you feel a pressure being a band leader, or is it like fairly normal?
I think I put a little pressure on
Yeah, right.
myself,
Yeah, we all
and
do it. Yeah.
coming up, with presenting sets, it's good. And I don't feel like I'm bad at that, but at the same time, I would like to put together, like you talk about composing and things like that, putting together fresh sets with a band in mind and things like that would be really amazing. So maybe this interview will inspire me to bring it to fruition.
Yeah, I always do that. I always with people are like, yeah, man, and then everyone's like, yeah, shit, I should do a record. It's like,
You're an inspiring person,
yeah,
man.
yeah. I mean, no, but I mentioned Sweet Transients before and Playful Intentions, and how did those records come about? And your connection with Jordy, and especially the groups that the bands are killing, from Kurt to Jeff Ballard and Bill Stewart and Ethan Iverson, and I mean, what's the story behind those records? And
Yeah, so that was a blessing. That came really from Jorge Rossi, the drummer,
oh, okay,
and he was kind of Jordy's I don't know, he A&R or whatever you call it, but he would recommend people to Jordy. And so, and my brother was probably involved, in because they were with Brad Meldo at
right,
that
yeah,
time for sure. And so Jordy was fantastic, as he basically he just gave you the green light, didn't tell you
yeah,
anything what to do, paid for the musicians, paid for the recording and all that. So initially, I mean, I knew I wanted to work with Bill Stewart. I had played with Bill Stewart in New York, and we go back probably to when I moved to New York, just doing
mm,
sessions. You do sessions with a lot of amazing people, and he was one of them. And I obviously wanted my brother. I feel like, and then Seamus, I had done a tour with in 1996 through Canada with Seamus for a couple weeks. We did all the Canadian Jazz Festival. So I knew I had a simpatico with Seamus. And so I knew I wanted him. I'm thinking the piano, I went through a few people. Somebody was going to do it and they backed out for various reasons. And I had played a session with Ethan Iverson.
mm,
And this is pre-Bad Plus. So he was not very well known, but I played once with him and he really made an impression on me, his musicality and his comping and all those beautiful
yeah,
good things. And I was listening like you to those early fresh sounds. And he did those two records, right? He
yeah,
did
Construction Zone, yeah, and Deconstruction Zone, yeah,
exactly,
yeah, it was
exactly.
beautiful, yeah.
So I knew that. So I added him to the mix. So that first record, we did it in 2 days. I think both my records I did the first day where I would do it cordless. And the second day we would add the chord player. So that first thing was Ethan Iverson. And so that was a great experience, to put that record out. And then Jordy gave me the opportunity to do the second one. And I wanted to do something different. And so yeah, I got Jeff Ballard, the drummer, we go way back. I met Jeff in 1985, and
Wow, okay,
I still remember this was a cool gig. I guess I found it on the internet, the recording of it, which I hope nobody would go listen to. But it was the Grenadier brothers for the one, I believe, the first San Francisco Jazz Festival. And so it was a youth and jazz, and it was the Grenadier brothers and Donnie McCaslin Quintet.
Ooh,
And that was the day that I met Jeff Ballard because Jeff Ballard was playing with Donnie McCaslin Quintet. And our drummer was a guy named Gaylord Birch, who was an incredible drummer in San Francisco. There were a lot of, not going off track, but there were a lot of great drummers in San Francisco
yeah,
during and Gaylor Birch was one of them who kind of played with the Pointer Sisters and maybe Cold Blood, all these kind of San Francisco bands. So that was a great day where I met Jeff Ballard. So we go back to that time and we played together a bunch in the 80s, and he moved to New York, I feel around 88, 89, and he was with Ray Charles. And so we have quite a history. And so I had him, and Bill Carruthers is another guy that I've always loved, and just, deep musician and player. And we had done some, I forget now, probably just sessions, and so I got him. And Kurt was just kind of the wild card where I just love Kurt. I had never played with him, but I got him to do it, and Jordy paid his price. And so that was, both my records honestly were very spontaneous. I guess maybe through the influence of Bob Belden, they were not rehearsed. It was, it might sound like that a little bit.
No, it sounds so fresh, man. It's really beautiful music.
Thank you. But and so so it was kind of interesting too to have Kurt and Bill Carruthers play together, guitar and piano.
Yeah.
And I think it worked out great. Those guys are both so musical. So I guess the first day we just did a quartet with Kurt, myself, Larry, and Jeff, and the second day we had a Bill Carruthers.
Yeah.
And so that one I did do more compositions for that one. The first record, Sweet Transience, is just the title track, I guess, is one by me. And the second one I probably did 4 or 5 originals. So it's kind of cool. But they were both super inspiring, and obviously you learn a lot from doing a recording. And then all that stuff, mixing and mastering and promoting it and all that. So it was great, but that's a long time ago now.
Yeah. That's why I asked for when's the new one coming. I love that stuff. So beautiful music. And did you ever do gigs or tours with those bands?
No.
Oh wow, interesting.
I guess when I played at the Jazz Gallery, I played with Larry and Bill Stewart and Bill McHenry.
Wow, beautiful. Another.
And so that was different. Yeah, I did a few gigs in New York with Bill McHenry, another incredible improviser, right?
Yeah.
And another fresh sound artist.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, fantastic, man. Yeah. Phil, I wanted to ask you, like, speaking of guitarists, I've read you had a beautiful experience with Scofield also. And many of the players you played with, like Stewart and Seamus Blake and all these guys, obviously are connected with Sco. Like, how did your story with Scofield begin and happen, actually?
Right. So that's another blessing, right? One of the somebody that I grew up listening to on so many things. I remember seeing him live with his, the Dennis Chambers electric band back then in San Francisco. And then obviously listening to him with Miles. I had all those records. And so he had done that record, This Meets That. And he was looking for a trumpeter that I guess John Swana, who did the record, somehow wasn't available, or I think, initially that band, he wanted 3 horns to be kind of just backing him up, not really. I think he wanted somebody that would just be willing to do that, not be at the forefront and improvising and this and that. And so somehow I feel like my brother Larry was involved, and recommended me. And so I wish I still had it, but I got the call. I was on a gig and I got the call from John Scofield saying, would you like to do this tour? And I was like, what? I felt like it was, like that old story, like, who's gonna joke on me, hang up on it. But it was like he left a message, And so that turned to, one of the greatest experiences of my life. And obviously, again, another person that is super inspiring musically, and also just a beautiful, supportive man, and just down to earth. I know you've done interviews with him, and incredible, And so he we went to New York and rehearsed. I got the thumbs up, and so we went out, and the first gig we did, Larry, my brother, he did the first tour, which was basically, we played the Blue Note in New York. I forget. No, actually we played in Boston, And then we went, it was kind of cool because I live in Boston. So we played here, the Regatta Bar. And then we went to my home, Yoshi's in Oakland. And then we played Comba in Santa
Yeah.
Cruz. And then we played a week at the Blue Note. And that was fantastic. So that was like a 3-week tour in the States. That was basically it for the States. And then we went to Europe. We'd go out to Europe for 5
Oh, you
weeks.
did? Wow, okay. Amazing.
And so that was with Bill Stewart and Steve Swallow, right? So pretty sublime experience. And we did maybe 3 European tours over the course
Wow.
of time. And then we went to South America. So I went to Brazil, went to 4 places in Brazil, went to a couple places in Argentina, and a few other places out there. So really a spoiling experience to travel that way, and to do the bus thing was really fun. But and that gig grew basically after a while. John allowed me to solo, and he gave me solos and more solos. So by the end, as the course of time, I'd have maybe 3 or 4 solos a night, which was
Okay. Oh,
great,
beautiful. Yeah.
and again, a great experience playing with those guys. Really, and just inspiring to travel with them, to watch them. I learned so much from them about everything, and they're just. Steve Swallow is so brilliant
Yeah, he's
and
amazing. Yeah.
smart, and
Yeah.
John Schofield is as well, and then just to travel hard and to hit the gig and watch these guys, and every night just play sublime, just top notch. So I learned so much. I'm eternally grateful to John.
It was beautiful, man. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's those guys are like that's the A game.
Truly,
Yeah.
truly, on
Beautiful.
every level.
Yeah. You mentioned you're in Boston now, like you moved from New York to Boston to teach, and you've been teaching for more than 20 years. What does that give to you as a player and as a person also? I mean, I think you're quite devoted to teaching. So how did that story begin for you?
Yeah, I started out teaching just trumpet, that I mean, over the years I've had experience doing jazz camps and doing this and that, which gave me a little bit of experience and in a variety of teaching. But basically, when I first got here, I was focused on just teaching trumpet, and so I had a lot of young trumpet students, a few older ones, and so that makes you kind of investigate yourself and look at things. Sometimes that can be good and bad. Yeah, I'm kind of an intuitive player, so if I analyze myself too much, it ultimately doesn't help me. But the last, I'd say 8 years, something like that, I got hired at the Berklee College of Music, and so initially I was hired to teach in the ensemble department, and so which I still am, and that's helped me grow immensely because you're helping. I mean, it's a great opportunity to help young people and try to prepare them. Honestly, Berkeley is kind of crazy where the amount of money these young adults are paying.
Yeah.
It seems kind of crazy. And so when I was an outsider, I thought it was truly crazy. Now that I'm on the inside, I'm just going to try to help them out as best I can.
Yeah.
And so that experience has grown. So I'm in the ensemble department. A few years ago, the great trumpeter Sean Jones was the head of the brass department, and he brought me in to teach in the brass department. So consequently, I was doing private lessons. I do improv for brass players, and I do a jazz brass history course. So all these records behind me help me with that. And I'm kind of a geek that way, where I just love the evolution of players and such like that. So all those things have really helped me grow as a teacher, surely, and I'm sure it helps me as a player as well. The the experience there, the just to help the kids is really where it's at, and to meet them where they're at. So that's always a constant challenge. Going through the pandemic, maybe things have changed a little bit, but ultimately the truth is just there that I'm trying to, meet them and help them as best I can. So it's an ongoing thing.
Yeah, beautiful, man. Yeah. I mean, you've done so much, obviously, as a player, and you have a lot to offer, so that's beautiful for them that they get to work with you. Uh, Phil, what's on the schedule still for you for this year? And you know, do you have any plans of coming to Europe as well, touring wise, or?
Yes. So in a couple weeks, I'm going, Berkeley takes me out on the road a little bit. And so I'm going to be at the Umbria Jazz
Oh,
Festival
fantastic. Okay.
for 2 weeks. And so I'll be teaching there, doing some sort of workshops. Which I did it last year. It was really a fantastic experience. Great students. And I have to say, I'm a bit of a foodie.
Mm,
And so
Italy,
going,
that's the place, man. Yeah.
it truly is. You have the 3 hour lunch, which is kind of a luxury, and then the dinners, and I like the natural wines and all that stuff. So I really, besides the music, uh, it's a great experience that way. So, and I think we're going to be playing there as well. The Berkeley faculty, we're going to do some show at some point. I mean, last year was great where my brother was there with Brad Meldau, with Jeff Ballard. So we got to hang out, and Bradford Marsalis, I got to hang out with his group, and I heard Enrico Rava
Sure.
and uh, Fred Hirsch duo. So there's
Yeah,
always
that's
great
beautiful.
music going on. And, there's less and less jazz. I think this year it's Toto, and
Yeah. Last year was Lenny Kravitz, or this year, right?
this year's Lenny
This year,
Kravitz.
yes. Okay.
So I think that's the trend of these jazz festivals. But Kenny Barron's going to be there. So
Yeah, it's still great jazz acts. Yeah.
right. So I'll get to be inspired that way. So that's coming up. I'll be there for like 2.5 weeks. Um, the bassist, I know you know him, Johnny Amen.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
So he's going to be bringing me to Finland
Oh,
and
really?
hopefully Copenhagen. That's going to
Beautiful.
be in October. So that's still being worked on. So anytime I can get to Europe, I'm thrilled, honestly.
Sure. Yeah.
It's a great experience. The audiences are way different, much more passionate and appreciative than here in the States.
Yeah.
So that's basically what I have coming up. I'll be starting teaching in September and doing all that. But and I think
Beautiful.
there's more stuff coming up in 2025, but that's still a work in progress.
Beautiful. Fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah,
man, I hope to catch you somewhere. If you're gonna come to Austria or something, drop me a line. We'll get
I
together.
will. If I
You
got to
know.
play with you, that would be a thrill.
Oh, I would love to. We have a guest room here. You're kindly invited,
Oh my gosh.
We live in
That,
a wine region, man, and we're such a food country, and my best neighbor is my neighbor is one of the best winemakers in Slovenia. So it's like it's dangerous. It's always like, nah. So
I would just do it for the research.
yeah, that's always what I always say. I go there buy wine, and then I end up like, well, I went a little bit far, uh, but yeah. So yeah, drop me a line if you're gonna be in Austria playing in Vienna or Graz or something, so we can get
I
to
surely will.
be
Thank you
fun.
so much. Yeah,
Yeah,
appreciate it.
cool. But Phil, I'll let you go to have a nice afternoon, and thanks for sharing some of these thoughts and everything. Really beautiful to hear you talk about it.
It's my pleasure and an honor. I have to admit that I've watched many of your
Oh,
videos.
really? How beautiful.
I love them. So I was thrilled you asked me, and gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you too.